I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll have some discussion. That is a change from what we see in front of us.
Yes.
Could I hear that number again?
That's what we were going to vote on last time, and it was changed. $3,733,572.
Is there any discussion among the council or questions for Mr. Trost or Mr. O'Laughlin? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of Mr. Trost's motion that we adopt final tax levy of $3,733,572, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. So we have 4-2. This motion fails. Okay.
I'll move on resolution 09-120.
Second.
As printed.
As printed. We have a motion from Coop, second by Lang. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Trost.
On March 2nd, I brought up when the state said they were going to cut our funding. I got the minutes right here. We have to do cost-saving measures like other cities are doing, especially with equipment and employment. I said the department head should review their budgets and advise where cuts can be made. Councilman O'Laughlin concurred, saying other cities are cutting their budgets. Since March 2nd, we hired another employee that I talked against for 3 or 4 meetings. We bought a new police car that I didn't think we need, an extra new police car, not a new one. I didn't think we needed at this time. And we bought an extra car for the city staff to use, a used car. And I didn't see any cuts made from anything since I stated this. The cuts were made to offset the shortage from the LGA from the state. We took $150,000 out of our checkbook and put it into the pay for bills next year. We moved. Thankfully, the 2 unions gave up their raises for the first 6 months of 2010, and we took the raises away from all city staff for the first 6 months in 2010. And I think we could cut this $110,000 approximately to what I made the first proposal for very easily. I think people laid off, foreclosures, people are going to have a hard time paying the extra money. Scott County in the past year has 70% raise in food stamps. Home mortgages in Belle Plaine, 24% are underwater. That means they owe more than the house is worth. I think it's time to cut spending like some of the other cities are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. O'Laughlin.
I'd like to refer back to a comment I likewise made about 4 or 5 months back when the original budget was presented. And it was brought up by one of our councilmen that I thought this was kind of a sleazy way to conduct business, but that's just me. The council decided to increase the budget with the idea that maybe later on they could bring the budget back down a little bit and make it look like we were really doing something, which in reality was malarkey. And so I don't go for that kind of baloney. That's just what it is, baloney. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, I think I will, does anybody want to respond to that? Or anybody else have anything else to say?
I have one more thing.
Yep.
The number I used was a number that the staff gave the city council in our meeting 3 months ago, which was a resolution 09-081. And the council changed that to the newer rate after staff presented the lower rate.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. I'll take exception to the words malarkey and a couple of other comments that Mr. O'Loughlin made. The budget has gone through, as we call it, the grinder. We have spent many hours of our meeting over this thing. And I think that in our efforts to come up with a fair resolution in order to balance the provision of services versus what we're willing to tax people, we did have some higher rates out there, and we did do some cutting, and many thanks go out to some of the city staff. Both the unions accepted essentially a 6-month freeze, and our salaried people accepted, is it 6 months, and actually with the possibility of going to a year. So hats off to those folks. Other departments have made some cuts. There have been some movement of some capital projects. So to characterize all of that as malarkey really puts the efforts of the folks that work for the city to, it's just not an appropriate thing to say. However, to address Mr. Trost's comments, and they're fair, we did adopt at one point a different number, and then, we grounded out and we said it was our judgment that the services that the city provides would have suffered. And at what did we come up with? 7.1, is that our number?
7.51.
7.51. It's never easy to raise taxes, and it's not something that we like doing. And last year, we didn't raise taxes, or we raised them by 0.066% or something. And that's going to bite us this year. We probably should have held steady last year, but we didn't. So in our strategy, in order to avoid wide swings in the taxation rate, we're trying to keep things at a very steady level. And given the circumstances in the state, and given the shortfalls that we're suffering that are basically of no fault of our own, where when you work with the state and you depend on